Memorial Day concert. Tonight's special guests are American statesman General Colin Powell, Rock and Roll Hall of Fame legend Gladys Knight, country music superstar Alan Jackson, Grammy Award winner Sarah Bareilles, Emmy-winning actor Steve Buscemi, 21-time Grammy Award winner Vince Gill, Motown icons The Four Tops, Tony Ford and Screen Actors Guild nominee Mary McCormick, a star of film and television Joe Morton, opera superstar Denise Graves, Emmy and Screen Actors Guild winner Kathy Baker, a star of film and Broadway stage Brian Darcy James, film and television star Bailey Madison, and Academy of Country Music nominee Mickey Guyton. Featuring the National Symphony Orchestra, conducted by Maestro Jack Everly, and General Mark A. Milley, Chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, and the Joint Chiefs of Staff, the U.S. Army Voices and Army Chorus, the Soldiers Chorus of the U.S. Army Field Band.
I'll try and check the sound.
The U.S. Navy Band Sea Champions, the U.S. Air Force Singing Sergeants, the U.S. Army Herald Trumpets, the Armed Forces Service Color Teams. The National Memorial Day Concert is made possible by the Horatio Alger Association of Distinguished Americans honors all who served, including 236 of its esteemed members. Since 1947, the Horatio Alger Award has been presented to outstanding Americans who embody the American dream, built on hard work, perseverance, and success. To them, the association has awarded $235 million in scholarships to enable 35,000 youth to pursue their American dream through higher education. And by the National Park Service, Department of the Army, the Corporation for Public Broadcasting, General Dynamics, and by contributions to the media station for viewers like you. For tonight's co-hosts, Emmy Award winner Joe Montana and Emmy Award winner Gary Sinise.
Welcome to the National Memorial Day Concert. As always, this great American tradition gives us a chance to unite in tribute and remember all those who gave their lives for our freedom, all who serve, and their families.
Out of concern for everyone's health, there will not be a live audience on the West Lawn of the U.S. Capitol. Instead, tonight's concert will feature tributes and performances in Washington, D.C., at Arlington National Cemetery and the Pentagon, and in New York City, Nashville, and here in this virtual space in Los Angeles.
It's no secret we've been living through challenging times, and our hearts go out to the families of the almost 600,000 Americans who lost their lives in this pandemic. But as always in our country's history, whenever there is a crisis, our brothers and sisters have answered the call.
Whether they are in uniform, serving overseas, or serving us here at home. And we want to make special mention of our first responders and the United States Capitol Police and its members who lost their lives serving their country.
Now, with a tribute to those who gave their very best to our nation, joining us from Washington, D.C. is the National Symphony Orchestra led by Maestro Jack Everly and Grammy-winning opera legend Denise Graves.
All we've been given by those who came before. The dream of a nation where freedom would endure. The work and prayers of centuries have brought us to this day. What will be our legacy? What will our children say? Let them say of me, I was one who believed in sharing the blessings I've received. Let me know in my heart when my days are through. America, America, I gave my best to you. For those who think
Thank you, Denise. That was beautiful. So many Americans have given of themselves in service to our nation in conflicts large and small, in war zones far away, in France and Germany, the Pacific Theater and Korea, in Iraq and Afghanistan, and not too long ago in Southeast Asia.
More than 500,000 American armed forces were called to fight the Vietnam War. Over 58,000 would never return. Images of young men fighting and dying flooded our TV screens. Mostly unseen were the 265,000 women who served with equal dedication.
They served in the Army, Navy, Air Force, and Marines. They were intelligence specialists and traffic controllers. They were volunteers with the Red Cross and the USO. Over 11,000 of these brave and committed women were stationed in country. 7,500 of them were nurses. There were no front lines in Vietnam. No safe areas. Relentless guerrilla warfare left wounded American service members in desperate need of immediate medical care. Medevac helicopters delivered a never-ending stream of mutilated and dying men to mobile hospitals. Doctors and nurses worked punishing round-the-clock shifts to save lives, often under a savage barrage of enemy rocket and mortar fire. Their courage and determination were astounding. They waited. They worked. They brought hope and humanity. Nurses witnessed the worst of war while giving the best they had. Their lives, like those of the men they sought to heal, were forever changed. They became a band of sisters, forging a bond with one another that would last a lifetime.
One of those nurses was a 21-year-old from a Minnesota dairy farm. Like all the women who served in the Vietnam era, Diane Carlson volunteered. To tell her story from the grounds of Arlington National Cemetery at the Women in Military Service for America Memorial, please welcome award-winning actress Kathy Baker.
I didn't join the Army to be an Army nurse. I wanted to be an Army nurse in Vietnam. The day I left, my father, he wasn't exactly the most affectionate person. He gave me the biggest hug ever and said, "I have 4 sons, and now I send my daughter off to war." They flew us nurses to Vietnam in skirts and cute little shoes. Then the doors opened, and you felt the oppressive heat and smelled the terrible stench. A soldier with a bandolier of bullets is shouting, "Get down! Get your head down!" You felt nothing but terror. I ended up in Pleiku, working the 71st Evacuation Hospital. It was pure chaos. We worked in helmets and flak jackets during incoming enemy fire. Patients on every table, blood everywhere you looked. The bodies came so fast, it was like they were on a conveyor belt. Then it was done, and we'd hose down the floors. We worked on young men whose chests were split open, or whose faces were scarred beyond recognition, and they'd lost their will to live. My biggest fear was that one of my patients would die on my watch, and it would be my fault. Everything is based on trust in a war zone, and we nurses trusted each other. But we never talked about what we saw or did that day. We couldn't. For the troops, the sound of choppers meant salvation. For us, it meant only one thing: more death. A nurse would often be the last person a soldier saw or touched or talked to before he died. I remember a young soldier wrapped nearly head to toe in bandages. His wounds were too severe. I knew he wouldn't make it through the night. "Ma'am," he said, "please stay. I don't want to die. Don't leave me. I won't, I said. I'm here with you. I held his hand as it grew colder and colder. He died a little after midnight. I still couldn't let go of his hand. I couldn't. I remember pulling the sheet over his face, and I knew that I would never forget that night at his side. In times like that, all you could do is pray for grace. I ran out of prayers in Pleiku. Every day in Vietnam, I'd felt part of something worthwhile, but things were different back home. I couldn't relate to my own generation. I couldn't relate to my own country. People treated me as if I'd done something shameful, but I was proud of what I'd done. I tried to get on with my life, but I was always on edge. I couldn't sleep. My dreams became a tangle of Vietnam casualties calling out for their mothers, and my own kids crying out for me. Trying to get over Vietnam was like being operated on by a rusty knife. What made it worse was that there was nobody I could talk to. So finally, I joined a group at the local vet center, the one woman with 9 men. They welcomed me into their circle. They made me feel as if I belonged. I realized I wasn't alone. A counselor told me, Diane, you're so angry. And anger turned inward is depression. I'd been denying the whole Vietnam experience. I didn't even consider myself a veteran. When I first saw the Vietnam Memorial Wall, it took my breath away. Who of you died on my watch? I'm sorry we couldn't save you. We tried. We all tried. I felt a hand tapping on my shoulder, and I turned to see this man in a faded field jacket. Ma'am, were you a nurse in Vietnam? He asked. I nodded. I've waited a lifetime to say this. Thank you. Thank you for being there for us. You're all we had. I felt blessed. I'd never shed a tear over my time in Vietnam, but that day I cried. That day I cried. Until I heard those simple words, thank you, I never realized how much I needed to hear them. Women have always stepped up to serve and always proven themselves. I wanted women who served in Vietnam to have a place that honored our sacrifice. In 1983, I made it my mission to create the first ever memorial on the National Mall dedicated to women who'd worn the military uniform. It took 10 years to break ground, but we prevailed. The Vietnam Women's Memorial is a place for healing. Together, families and veterans find a sense of purpose and belonging there. All sorrows can be borne if we share our stories. It's hard, but once we share them, it softens the pain. I think about my service in Vietnam every day. Thousands of wounded and touched many of the 58,000 others whose names are etched in black granite. It's part of my life. It's who I am. It's who we all are. We remember.
Ladies and gentlemen, Grammy winner Sarah Bareilles.
This song is dedicated to the nurses and all the women who served in the Vietnam era. Their courage and compassion will never be forgotten.
When you're down and troubled and you need a helping hand, nothing, oh, nothing is going right. Close your eyes and think of me. Soon I will be there to brighten even your darkest night. You just call out my name, and you know wherever I am, I'll come running to see you again. Into spring, summer, or fall, all you gotta do is call, and I'll be there. Yes, I will. Now ain't it good to know you got a friend? People can be so cold, hurt you, desert you. They'll take your soul if you let them. Don't let them. You just
Is the feedback?
call my name. You know wherever I am, I'll come running. See you again. Spring, summer, fall. All you gotta do is call, and I'll be there. Yes, I will. Got a friend.
And now, a man who has dedicated his life to our country. He has been a very important part of the National Memorial Day concert since 1991, and we're so honored he's with us again. Please welcome General Colin Powell.
Thank you. Tonight we honor the over 265,000 women who served around the world during the Vietnam era, and pay special tribute to those of you who served in Vietnam. I knew you there as line officers and enlisted personnel, as nurses who saw the bleakest, most terrifying face of war. Day after day, night after hellish night. When I was hurt, you took care of me. For male soldiers, the war came in flashes of terror and occasional death. But for the nurses, the pain was unrelenting. You went, you served, you suffered. You came quietly home into a society that did not understand the full extent of your sacrifice and the grief you carried. We as a nation should have thanked you and recognized you when you came home. You should have been comforted by us as you comforted so many wounded and dying soldiers in Vietnam. And yet, in spite of your pain, your story is one of courage, healing, and the triumph of the human spirit. A story of a sisterhood that has remained intact and includes its brother veterans. A story to inspire generations of servicewomen who follow in your footsteps. Vietnam's Women's Memorial, as envisioned by Diane Carlson Evans, will for all time bear witness to what you did. Your acts of hope and strength, tenderness and power, and ensure that all of America will remember that you served without. My fellow veterans, your service and your sacrifice will never be forgotten. God bless you all.
Thank you, General Powell. They've earned the title of the greatest generation. But even those two powerful words do not adequately describe their heroism during the Second World War. 16 million Americans served in uniform in that epic cause, and more than 400,000 lost their lives. Simply put, they saved the world from global tyranny, and when they came home, they laid the foundation for the America we live in and love today. Both Joe and I had uncles who served in World War II. Sadly, they're now gone, and there are far too few of their comrades left. One of the heroes I got to know is Private First Class Lawrence Brooks, who is our nation's oldest living veteran. This 111-year-old is an inspiration to us all.
He was everything. He was everything. That was in South Pacific 2 years and 9 months. That's what we did. See that ass strip there? That's what our cup to feel. We just wanted to come out and say thank you for providing opportunity for a lot of us. There's nothing like you talk to an older person and find out their experiences, man. It's like lessons that you can't get anywhere else. So it's just a blessing to know Mr. Brooks. We need people like him, you know what I'm saying, to lead us, because that is genius that we just can't make up right there. My mother's father raised me and told me, it's God and be nice to people. I guess that's why I've been living so long, I reckon. God bless you. God bless all of you. I love you.
I'm so glad we had a chance to introduce you to Mr. Brooks. What an amazing man.
At the end of World War II, we were praying that peace would reign for a long time. But as we know, within a few short years, fighting would break out on the Korean Peninsula.
It's been just over 70 years since the start of the Korean War. More than 1.7 million Americans served in this brutal conflict. Called a police action at the time by President Harry S. Truman and the United Nations, the war lasted 3 years and ended in an armistice without a formal peace treaty.
Tensions on the Korean Peninsula remain high as a result of this unresolved truce, keeping our men and women stationed in South Korea in a state of heightened alert. Tonight, we honor the proud veterans who answered their country's call to duty and the members of an elite unit who made history with their courage and valor. June 25th, 1950, North Korea, with support from the Soviet Union and China, launches a surprise attack against South Korea. As Cold War tensions ignite, UN troops come to South Korea's defense. The first American forces land in early July. They fight punishing battles that rage across the Korean Peninsula. UN forces begin a push across the 38th parallel toward the Chinese border. An unforgiving winter stalls the advance. The Chinese bolster North Korean forces with massive numbers of their own soldiers. Our troops face hideous privations, endure terrible extremes of weather, struggle through the savage terrain. More than 100,000 are wounded. 37,000 Americans lose their lives in the country known as the Land of the Morning Calm. None who survives will ever forget what he experienced. 3 months into the Korean War, the Army asked for volunteers to form 4 new Ranger infantry companies, including an all-African American unit. More than 500 men applied. One of them was a young man from Oakland, California, named Cleveland Valley. Here to tell Sergeant Valley's story is distinguished actor Joe Morton.
All it took for me was to see the sign in the recruiting office in downtown Oakland. Join the Army, see the world. There was no question. I wanted to be a Ranger and a parachutist. About 120 of us made the grade. We were the first and only all-black Ranger company, a black elite force led by black officers. The Army sent us to jump school in Fort Benning, Georgia for training. Our brother company, the 4th Rangers, was all white. We became good friends. We practiced small-scale raids behind the lines near enemy headquarters. Get in fast, do your thing, get out. All of us knew it was going to be a long haul, but we were gung-ho, young, and invincible. We thought we could do just about anything. My first memory of Korea is the cold. We arrived in the dead of winter. The wind and snow never stopped blowing, We rode in open bed trucks with no canvas when it was 20 below. The pain was excruciating. The 2nd Rangers saw combat 7 days after we landed. We took small arms fire and grenades. Then they attacked in full force. Thousands of Chinese soldiers. If you got one, another would come. If you got 100, another 100 were right behind them. It was terrifying. Lost our 1st Ranger that night, Sergeant First Class Isaac Baker. That was a shock. No matter how much you think you're prepared, that first man killed changes the way you look at things. By the end of the first month, we were down to about 60 men and 1 officer. If a bullet didn't get you, the frostbite would. Take off your boots, all your toes would be frozen. Sometimes the only way you could follow a trail was by the bloody footprints of the man walking ahead of you. I was next to my partner, James Oakley, when the ice cracked right under him. I reached out my hand and tried to grab him. He had too much weight on his back. All that heavy ammunition pulled him right under. The current just took him away. You don't dwell on it right then. You know he's gone and not coming back. But later you think, why did he get killed and I didn't? Why him? Why not me? There was this one time I was leading the squad across a frozen river. We were taking fire from right in front of us and on either side. I heard the word retreat. About 6 guys had already crossed the river, and most of my squad that turned to go back got hit. 3 days later, we went back to retrieve the bodies. Found them, stripped and frozen solid. Every one of them had been machine gunned, but there was no blood because it was so cold. You don't forget something like that. Not ever. War is hell. It just is. There's nothing pretty about it. In March of 51, they attached the 2nd Rangers to the 187th Airborne Regimental Combat Team as part of Operation Tomahawk. It was Good Friday. Our commander said to us, "Men, we're going to make history." And we did. That was the first time in the U.S. Army that a black unit was included in an airborne combat jump. Every 2nd Ranger wanted to be part of it. A few guys even got themselves discharged from the hospital early just so they wouldn't miss the chance. We all knew it was dangerous. Guys did different things before the mission. Some wrote letters. I read my Bible. It wasn't the jump that bothered me. It was what might happen next. People say you can't see tracer bullets coming toward you. Don't believe it. I was glad to hit the ground in one piece. But I landed right next to a Chinese soldier. Didn't even see him until after a brother ranger shot him dead and saved my life. I dove for cover. A white soldier dug in right next to me, and we heard the artillery whistling overhead. We both hugged the ground a little bit harder. There's no discrimination in a foxhole. The 2nd Rangers took our objective that day. We proved to ourselves and the rest of the Army that we were good as anybody. In Korea, it didn't matter what you believed or what color your skin was. We were all Americans, one nation under God. That's the country the 2nd Rangers fought for. On Memorial Day, I remember all the men I knew who we lost. I also think of the North Korean and Chinese soldiers we found dead. Sometimes they had photos of their families pinned inside their uniforms. That moved me deep. I've heard Korea called the Forgotten War, but none of us who fought and suffered over there will ever forget it. We did our country proud, and we remember.
And now, here is the incomparable Gladys Knight.
This song is dedicated to the Second Rangers and all our heroes who fought in the Korean War. And I say this: it must have been cold there in my shadow. Never had sunlight on your face. You were content to be shy. You always walked a step behind. I was the one with all the glory. You were the one with all the strength. A beautiful face without a name. Oh yeah, I never once heard you complain. Oh, did you ever know that you're my hero? And everything I'd like to be. Ooh, I can fly higher than an eagle. 'Cause you are the wind beneath my wings. It might have appeared to go unnoticed. I've got it all right here in my heart. Oh, I want you to know, I know the truth. Without like to be. Ooh, I can fly higher than the eagle. Oh, you will be my wings. Oh yeah, I fly so high. You know, you are the
I can't tell if that feedback is on the broadcast or just because the speaker's too close.
From Arlington National Cemetery, here is General Colin Powell.
We are honored to have 3 members of the Second Rangers who are with us tonight. On behalf of all Americans, we thank you for your tremendous service. The Second Ranger Infantry Company shattered stereotypes. These Rangers made a historic contribution to racial equality in the military and proved the ability of black soldiers. Their story and that of other African Americans who fought in the Korean War inspired me, helped me to imagine a career in the military, and set the stage for me and so many others to succeed. They showed the way, and it is for their courage and their willingness to fight for the values of our nation that we honor them. Tonight we pay tribute to the heroism of all our Korean War veterans. We renew our promise always to remember their service to our country and the ultimate sacrifice of the more than 36,000 soldiers that gave their lives in this fierce, brutal war. We are honored to have distinguished veterans of the Korean War here with us. We salute you and all your fellow brothers in arms. And now please join me in thanking these true American heroes.
Thank you, General Powell. The Gulf War began 30 years ago when our nation launched Operation Desert Storm. We thank all those who fought and sacrificed in that conflict, and we remember all the Gold Star families of those who were lost.
It's so hard for those who are deployed overseas and missing their loved ones. And it is equally hard for their families here at home. There's an ache, a longing, a need to connect, and to always show each other their support and love, no matter how far apart.
With a song that speaks to that, here are recipients of the Grammy Lifetime Achievement Award, the Four Tops.
America, to all the troops and their families, to those who have already served from the Four Tops on Memorial Day. Baby, I need your love now. Baby, I need your love now. Although you never hear your voice, I often hear. Another day, another night. I long to hold you tight. I'm so lonely. Baby, I need your love. Got to have all your love. Baby, I need your love. Got to have all your love. So play the side of me. Having you, lately I've been through baby, I need your love. To have all your love. Baby, I need your love. To have all your love. If the nights echo your name, yeah. Sometimes I wonder if I'll ever be the same. Oh yeah. Baby, I need your love. To have all your love. Baby, I need your love. To have all your love.
Thank you, gentlemen. 2021 marks the 100th anniversary of the Tomb of the Unknown Soldier at Arlington National Cemetery, a focal point to bring all Americans together to reflect upon and remember those who gave their lives for our country. 2021 also marks the 80th anniversary of the attack on Pearl Harbor that brought America into the Second World War. President Roosevelt called December 7th, 1941, a date that would live in infamy. For us, on this Memorial Day, this 80th anniversary year is a chance to reflect and remember the 2,400 lives lost, and to be grateful to the millions of Americans who united to save the world. We recently reached out to veterans who were there at Pearl Harbor and asked them to be part of this concert. We thank them for their service and for giving us a few moments of their precious time.
7 minutes to 8, the phone rang. I picked up the phone there, and the guy says, Japanese attacking Pearl Harbor.
Well, the ship blew up 7, 8 minutes there. 1,177 were killed. They didn't have time. They got to the battle stations, and that was all.
By the time I get up there, planes are buzzing on, buildings are burning here. It's chaos.
I'm not a hero. I just did my job the best I could. Pearl Harbor is always a date to remember. The 2,403 killed here that Sunday, of which 1,177 were my shipmates aboard the Arizona. You never forget it. Never.
I'm proud of my service. I'm proud of my country. I do it again because a lot of people died for this country. They died for liberty there, and they died for you. Memorial Day is an important day to honor all the ones that are passed.
60 years after Pearl Harbor, our nation was once again under attack on our home soil. September 11th, 2001, shattered our sense of security and peace.
It took some time for the buildings to rise again from the ashes and dust of that day 20 years ago. But more important, as the days went by, so rose the American spirit. We were reminded of our shared values and of our unity as a people. The healing began, and it continues to this day. The scars will never fully fade, for we all know that our memories of September 11th will be seared in our minds and hearts forever.
Where were you that day?
I was at home in Los Angeles when I got a call from a friend to turn on the TV. Like everyone, I had no idea what to think. I was in shock. While the bombing of Pearl Harbor was an attack on our military, our Pacific Fleet, the terrorist attack, September 11, 2001, was an attack on both our military and the Pentagon and our civilian population as well. It shook the world, and it was a day that I'll never forget. What about you, Joe?
I was about to begin my first day of shooting on a new TV show. And as I was getting ready, my wife ran into the room saying, "Turn on the TV." As I watched, I felt so helpless. A few months later, I was asked if I wanted to take part in the National Memorial Day concert to share the story of 4 New York City firefighters who lost their sons that day. I did that. I've been part of this concert ever since. September 11th forever changed how I think of Memorial Day. For me, it's the most important day we have as a nation.
The tragic events of September 11th changed things for so many Americans. Among them was an actor who had once worked as a New York City firefighter. In the days after the attack, he volunteered to help his former colleagues at the firehouse try and locate bodies of the missing.
Coming to us from Ground Zero, overlooking the 9/11 Memorial in Manhattan, is that former firefighter, the acclaimed actor Steve Buscemi.
We woke to a bright September day full of promise. All across the country, we were taking kids to school, going to work, having coffee with friends. And then the phone calls began. Oh my God, a plane hit the World Trade Center? How could that happen? Are you watching this? Turn on your TV. And a morning that began so sunny and bright was the beginning of America's darkest hours. We watched in disbelief at the flames from the North Tower shooting into the sky, the air filling with smoke. And then Flight 175 flies full force into the second tower. The city's bravest and finest running towards danger to help save those fleeing from it. Images that can never be erased from memory. Pictures that will never be lost to time. There's confusion and chaos, and every passing minute brings a new tragedy. A third jet veers into D.C. airspace at ground level, exploding in the nerve center of our national defense, killing over 200 people. Heroes in uniform and civilian workers rushed to the rescue, leading thousands to safety and evacuating children in the Pentagon Daycare Center. Over 100 miles away, in the sky over Pennsylvania, passengers on Flight 93 call their loved ones to say goodbye, and then launch a courageous attack to regain control of the plane. It plunges into an isolated field in Shanksville. But the sacrifice of those on board that day saves countless lives in our nation's capital. Then, as thousands watch from the streets and tens of millions watch at home, the South Tower collapses. 102 minutes after the first attack, the North Tower falls. In less than 2 hours, almost 3,000 human souls were lost. They were moms and dads, sons and daughters, senior citizens with fond memories of days past, and young people with dreams of tomorrow. And it didn't matter their color or religion, who they were, or where they were from, for on that day, they all were our brothers and sisters. At Manhattan's Engine Company 55, where I worked for a few years, the guys I served with each knew 20 to 30 firefighters who made the ultimate sacrifice. 5,000 children lost a parent that day. 5,000. 880 of them were firefighters' kids. In the hours that followed, we did more than mourn. Our grief and anger were the catalyst to bring Americans together, doing whatever we could to help, donating blood, giving comfort to friends and to strangers alike, searching for survivors. But there were so few to find. As day turned into night that September 11th, 20 years ago, a skyline and a nation were forever changed. But the fires that burned helped forge a spirit of unity. From the dust and debris, heroes arose. And the memorials that stand today on those hallowed grounds remind us of the promises we made to those we lost and to their families that we will never forget.
And now, with a song that resonated so powerfully with so many Americans back then and today, here is Alan Jackson.
Where were you when the world stopped turning that September day? You in the yard with your wife and children working on some stage in L.A. Did you stand there and shout at the sight of that black smoke rising against that blue sky? Did you shout out in anger and fear for your neighbor? Did you just sit down and cry? Did you weep for the children who lost their dear loved ones? Pray for the ones who don't know. Did you rejoice for the people who walk from the rubble south to the ones left below? Did you burst out with pride for the red, white, and blue? The heroes who died just doing what they do. Did you look up to heaven for some kind of answer? Look at yourself, what really matters. Just a singer of simple songs, I'm not a real political man. I watch CNN, but I'm not sure I can tell you the difference in Iraq and Iran. I know Jesus and I talk to God. I remember this when I was young. Faith, hope, and love are some good things He gave us. The greatest is love. Where were you when the world stopped turning that September day? Teaching a class full of innocent children, driving down some cold interstate. Did you feel guilty You're a survivor. Crowded room and you feel alone. Did you call up your mother and tell her you love her? To dust off that Bible at home. Did you open your eyes? Hope it never happened. Close your eyes and not go. You notice the sunset. First time in ages. Speak to some stranger on the street. Did you lay down at night and think of tomorrow? Go out and buy you a gun. Turn off that violent old movie. Watch it. Turn on out of the series. Did you go to a church and hold hands with some stranger? Stand in line and give your own blood? Did you just stay home and cling tight to your family? Thank God you had somebody to love. Just a singer of simple songs. I'm not a real political man. I watch CNN, but I'm not sure I can tell you the difference in our back around. I know Jesus and I talk to God. I remember this when I was young. Faith, hope, and love are some good things He gave us. The greatest is love. Greatest is love. Greatest is love. Where were you when the world stopped turning on that September day? We all thank Alan. We know how busy he's been with his new album, Where Have You Gone? But being a part of this tribute was so important to him that he wanted to share his powerful song that resonated with so many Americans back then and today. Since 9/11, over 3 million men and women have served in our armed forces around the globe. The wars in Iraq and Afghanistan have claimed the lives of over 7,000 service members and left tens of thousands wounded, ill, and injured. As the end to America's longest war appears in sight, we look forward to opening our arms to those who will soon be returning home. We salute those who gave the last full measure of devotion in their country's service, and we grieve with the families left behind. A generation of men and women inspired by love for their country. A generation who put fear behind them. A generation at war. For 20 years, our patriotic servicemen and women have braved multiple deployments, faced the brutality of unconventional warfare, snipers, unceasing guerrilla attacks, and IEDs. Some have returned to the tearful, loving embrace of their families. Others bear the terrible scars of battle and the invisible wounds of post-traumatic stress.
Another day, man. Another day.
Too many have made a final homecoming shrouded in honor and sacrifice. Every loss tears a hole in a delicate fabric of relationships. Parents, children, friends. They waited while a generation at war continued to serve.
Step Staff Sergeant Joseph Faniff was a volunteer citizen soldier of the Connecticut National Guard when he fell in love with his wife, Michelle. Here to share the story of the Faniff family, acclaimed actresses Mary McCormick and Bailey Madison.
Joe lived 2 towns over from ours. His high school was our arch rival, so I knew who he was. He was cute, no doubt about that. But boy, could he be cocky. One date with Joe was all it took. Fast forward, and we're married and raising Ryan, Danielle, and Jordan. Joe became a volunteer firefighter under my dad and coached basketball and baseball. I was working as an EMT and taking care of the kids. After a while, Joe decided to end his stint with the Guard to spend more time with us. On September 11th, 2001, Joe called me from work, beside himself. He wanted to go right away to help, but I talked him out of it. A few weeks later, we drove into the city. Everything was still covered in dust. When Joe saw the Guard patrolling, that's when he started thinking he needed to get back in. He was determined to help track down the terrorists. He weren't going to mess with his America, not with his war, not on his watch.
Dad was always there for us. I loved his laugh most of all. I was only 6 the first time that he left for deployment. He tried to act tough, but cried when he hugged us. I didn't understand the magnitude of it. Not then.
Joe kept in touch as often as he could from Iraq and Afghanistan. He'd call or email no matter where he was. And he'd always send photos.
There's pictures of him in the barracks, wearing these funny costumes. He would give candy to the kids over there. He was always trying to lift people's spirits. That was my dad.
Joe felt invincible. The last email I got from him said, "Hey, honey, I'll text you when I get back from the mission. I'm off to discover new and uncharted lands." It was early morning, December 16th. Jordan had fallen asleep on my bed. I heard a car drive up. We had this gravel driveway, and you could hear the rocks crunching as it rolled past the window. I jumped up to see who it was. When I stepped outside, I saw 2 men in army uniforms getting out of the car just like you see in the movies. I knew right then. They came up the steps. "Michelle Faniff, can we come in?"
I got up and went into the living room. I saw my sister Danny, and I was like, "What's going on?" And she said, "Dad."
I don't even remember what came out of my mouth. I remember my Danny screaming. She just started screaming.
I looked out the window and I saw my aunt crying. Then she collapsed on the driveway. I was so overwhelmed.
What do you say? How do you tell your children their world then and there is never going to be the same?
It didn't make sense to me. It never will. I mean, Dad's birthday had only been a few days ago. It was right before Christmas, and we had just hung his favorite ornament on the tree.
All I wanted to do was curl up in bed and sob my heart out. But I held it together for the funeral. Joe deserved that. And the kids needed to see that. Joe always stood proud for what he believed in. And I was going to honor that. So I stood tall.
People kept moving past me in the line. They didn't know what to say to a sad little kid. But then this man that I didn't even know got down on his knees so he could look me into the eyes. And he said, "Your dad was a hero. You'll understand when you're older how great he was." And I started crying because first person to really see me in that moment.
Joe loved Arlington Cemetery. The solemnity, the sense of sacrifice. He told me he wanted to be buried there. People from Eastford, 2 whole busloads, came to pay their respects.
I keep my dad's picture by my bed. Mom made us these scrapbooks with all the pictures of us as a family. And whenever I have a really sad day, I take it off the shelf to help me remember.
We always talk about it. We just do. And I hope that I've helped to instill in my children that he's still here. Not in the way you want him to be here, I tell them, but in your heart. That's where your father is.
I definitely wish that he had been there for things like graduating high school or college or my 21st birthday. But I know that he's watching over me. I know he'd want me to be strong.
It means so much to us to know that Joe's officers and fellow soldiers called him a hero for the goodness in his heart to help others. They could count on him. His country could count on him. Just like we always do.
That's why Memorial Day is so important to us, to our family. It's a time for us to close our eyes and remember. We remember my dad.
We remember why we have this day and how we got here. It's so important for us to all stop whatever we're doing, even if only for a moment, for Joe and all the men and women who gave their lives to remember.
To remember.
And now, with a song dedicated to the Faniff family and all America's Gold Star families who lost a loved one to war, here is Brian Darcy James.
Come stop your crying, it'll be alright. Just take my hand and hold it tight. I will protect you from all around you. I will be here, don't you cry. For one so small, you seem so strong. My arms will hold you, keep you safe and warm. This bond between us can't be broken. I will be here, don't you cry. But you will be in my heart. Yes, you will be in my heart. From this day on, now and forevermore. Don't listen to them, 'cause what do they know? We need each other to have to hold. They'll see in time. I know. When destiny calls you, you must be strong. I may not be with you, so you got to hold on. They'll see in time. I know. We'll show them together, 'cause you'll be in my heart. Believe me, you'll be in my heart. I'll be there from this day on, now and forevermore. You'll be in my heart. No matter what they say, you'll be here in
Arlington National Cemetery, once again, General Colin Powell.
In honor of all those who have died in service to our nation, please rise at home, in body or in spirit, with hand on heart or salute, for the playing of taps.
Ladies and gentlemen, Vince Gill.
I know your light on earth is strong. Only you could know the pain. Weren't afraid to face the devil. Were no stranger to go rest high on that mountain. Sung your word on earth is done. Go to heaven, love for the Father. Oh, how we cry the day you left us. Gather round your grave to read. As I could see the angels' faces, and they your sweet voice sing. Oh, rest high on that mountain. Sung your word on earth is done. Go to heaven, shout love for the Father. Be safely home in the arms of Jesus. Eternal life, my brothers found. Day will come, I know I'll see the sacred place on that holy ground. Oh, it's high on that mountain. Sun your word, all earth is new. Go to heaven, love for the Father. Go to heaven, love for the Father.
Thank you, Vince, for a beautiful performance. Gary, I know the events of September 11th are what led you to do so much for wounded warriors, veterans, military families, and first responders.
Thanks, Joe. We owe it to all our veterans, to all those who wear the scars of war, whether those scars are visible or not, to reach out, to listen, to help them heal, to lend a helping hand. On our website, you'll find links to organizations dedicated to helping veterans, active duty military, and their families.
If you are a wounded, ill, or injured veteran in need of help, or want to give help, please reach out. And if you or someone you know is experiencing symptoms of emotional distress, feeling especially isolated during the COVID pandemic, or having thoughts of suicide, immediate help is available at the number on our screen. Don't suffer in silence. Reach out.
As always, at the National Memorial Day concert, we honor all the men and women of our armed services. This year, General Mark A. Milley, the 20th Chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, and the Joint Chiefs of Staff have prepared this salute to all of those who served or have served.
From the 9/11 Memorial at the Pentagon, here are the chiefs of the military services, joined by Maestro Jack Everly, the National Symphony Orchestra, and military choruses and service color teams for the Armed Forces Medley.
The United States Coast Guard.
United States Fairy Tale.
United States Navy.
United States Marine.
It is our honor to introduce the distinguished chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff.
Ladies and gentlemen, General Mark A. Milley.
This Memorial Day, we pause to honor those who have made the ultimate sacrifice in defense of our nation. We remember their courage. We remember their selfless service. We remember how they lived and the values they embodied. This year marks 20 years since that cloudless autumn morning in September that changed the course of American history. Here at the Pentagon, those in uniform and their civilian colleagues settled into the rhythms and routines of a normal Tuesday morning. 36 minutes after the second plane struck the Twin Towers in New York City, at 9:37 a.m., 184 men, women, and children were murdered in a violent impact, fiery blast, right behind where I'm standing now. 26 minutes later, the fourth plane crashed into an open field in Shanksville, Pennsylvania. The innocent range in age from 3 to 71 years old. Those who perished here, along with almost 3,000 more in New York City and Somerset County, Pennsylvania, were killed for what they believed, what they represented, just being American. Since that dark day in our nation's history, our men and women in uniform have fought tirelessly to defeat terrorists for almost 2 consecutive decades. Since 9/11, 5,475 of our sons and daughters who wear the cloth of our nation were given the last full measure of devotion to ensure that this republic for which we stand remains unbreakable. They paid in blood for the freedoms we all exercise each and every day. Today, we honor the extraordinary sacrifice of those service members and their families, especially our Gold Star families. Each individual loss brings an absence that can never be filled. Each loss of life is eternal. The pain never fully heals. Every husband or wife, mother or father, brother or sister, son or daughter, taken too soon is a grief only their loved ones can fully comprehend. For the families of the fallen, every day is Memorial Day. And we, the living, should always honor them. Always honor their families, not just on Memorial Day, but every day. Honor what they stood for and why they died, to protect and defend the idea that is America. On behalf of the Joint Chiefs of Staff and all of our men and women in uniform, thank you for remembering those who have sacrificed it all on the altar of freedom and given their tomorrows for our todays. May God bless each and every one of them and their families. May God bless America.
Thank you, General Milley. And thank you, everyone, for joining us for this, the 32nd annual National Memorial Day concert. And both Joe and I are looking forward to being with you back in our nation's capital next year.
If there is one word that defines this concert and Memorial Day itself, it is the word remember. And on this day, we remember to always hold in our hearts what truly matters and to focus not on what may temporarily divide us, but on what permanently unites us. Our cherished American values, our love of country, and of our desire to live together in peace. And now, with a song that speaks to that hope, once again, here is Gladys Knight. Be peace on earth, and let it begin. Let there be peace on earth, peace that was meant to be with God as our Father, brothers and sisters, are we. Let me be born
To honor the sacrifice of our brave men and women in military service and their families, and to learn more about the National Memorial Day Concert, please visit our website at pbs.org/Memorial Day Concert, or join us on Facebook and Twitter. National Memorial Day Concert is made possible by the Horatio Alger Association of Distinguished Americans honors all who serve, including 236 of its esteemed members. Since 1947, the Horatio Alger Award has been presented to outstanding Americans who embody the American dream, built on hard work, perseverance, and success. Through them, the association has awarded $235 million in scholarships to enable 35,000 youth to pursue their American dream through higher education. The National Park Service, Department of the Army, the Corporation for Public Broadcasting, General Dynamics, and by contributions to your PBS station from viewers like you. Thank you.
On Queen's Midwife, see children out on the street.